The Speaker at different forums have assured Nigerians that all policies, decisions that this government will implement must be to the benefit of the generality of Nigerians, that nobody would be shortchanged. The Minister of State Petroleum, Igedde is still not visible in the Green Chamber. "24 minutes after, he's not yet in the chamber, and definitely he must be somewhere expecting to see members usher him in to the Green Chamber. He's been here before, but this was not certainly the duration that greeted his acceptance into the House. You can see pocket of members standing.
Order. Honorable members, please take your seats. Order, honorable members. Please take your seats.
The main minister should come here, not this state minister. Let the main minister come.
Babangida. Dalla.
Order, please. Order, honorable members. Please take your seats. Order, please. Honorable members, please take your seats. Thank you. Thank you, and God bless Nigeria.
Well, this is the beauty of democracy. It's always better if we disagree before we agree. Minority Leader, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My highly respected colleagues, I remain Leo Okuwe Ogo, representing Isoko Federal Constituency, Mr. Speaker. My respected colleagues, I'm from Delta State. By the special grace of God, the minority leader of the largest party in Africa. May I move, and I so move, Mr. Speaker, that this House do resolve into an executive session to discuss some very pending national issues. Right Honorable Speaker, my colleagues, I so move.
Arano second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, my distinguished colleagues. My name is Honorable Sani Mohammed Ali Uranu. I'm from Kano State, and I represent the good people of Rano, Bunkure, and Kivya Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion ably moved by the minority leader that this House do now resolve into an executive session to discuss some very important and vital issues regards to our national country, Nigeria. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. The House hereby resolve into an executive session.
Most people have an idea of what they want to do in order to become financially independent. But the truth is, the basis for choosing a career is not always cast in stone. Therefore, people find themselves exploring other avenues for fulfilling this desire. Welcome to agriculture, a better alternative.
Civilization began with agriculture, When our nomadic ancestors began to settle and grow their own food, the human society was forever changed. Human societies, no matter how sophisticated, could not ignore the importance of agriculture. Agriculture, also called farming or husbandry, is the cultivation of animals, plants, and other life forms for food, fiber, biofuel, drugs, and other products used to sustain and enhance human life. Chicken farming in Nigeria has become one of the most important aspects of farming. Aside from them being a delicious source of protein, chicken production is a great business opportunity for entrepreneurs and provides employment for job seekers. It also happens to be one of the few meat sources without any religious restrictions as to its consumption. Agriculture, a better alternative, is as practical as it can get with a weekly hands-on tour of farms. Come with us as we take a tour of Debo Farms with students of Strong Tower Academy. Taking us on this tour is Mr. David Odladapo, a proud and active farmer with about 20 years hands-on experience in chicken production.
This farm is situated on Lagos State Poultry Estate land at Ikorodu. So today, I'm very happy to be taking on egg production from day old. The first thing is that your day old, you must make sure you get the day old from a reputable hatchery. Like when I talk about reputable hatchery, I mean hatchery that people have already they have tested there and they see they are raising bird that is not giving problem. Because on the farm we have a lot of diseases that do affect birds. Like there's a particular vaccination, we call it MARES, that the birds supposed to be given, they were. We have some hatchery because of the cost implication, they don't normally give the birds. So getting a reputable hatchery means hatcheries that they will do what they are supposed to do on that first day. For example, the MARES vaccine must be given to the bird on the first day. So you must make sure you get a day old from a reputable hatchery. So it's not always advisable to just go to the markets. We have some people that they just sell birds, maybe like from 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks old. Those people, they are just trying to make their living, but it's not good for the farmers because we discover at the end of the day that the vaccinations and the drugs they're supposed to agree those birds, we didn't give them, and the bird will start to have problem on the farm. So it's not the farmers that will run that scatter just to make sure that the birds are in good condition. Before the time of collection of your birds, you have to prepare what we call a brooding house. A brooding house is a place where you receive the birds from day home. The birds at this period, they are very delicate. They are very fragile. That you have to make sure you give them maximum attention. For those of you that are offering physics in the school, we talk about poor conductor and the good conductor of it. You can see that the black will not be able to absorb it. Because the bird now we try to do what? We try to regulate their temperature. So like we normally use the black materials for the day old. Then the brooding house, you also have other things that we try to prepare. You have to have your thermometer because you try to regulate the temperature of the birds. You have the charcoal. Some people use gas. But when there is cold, you have to raise the temperature of the bird. So we do all these things because the birds are still very fragile until they develop their feather. So let's go to the brooding house to see what is happening here. When they are 8 weeks of age, as I said, you have to move them to another house we call grower house. In the grower house, grower house will be more spacious than where we are keeping them before. In the grower house, you have to change their feet. Before I said they are eating 6 mass, you have to change them to the grower mass. So the essence of the grower mart is to make them, to help them to grow. And they will be in the grower house from that 8 weeks of age until they about the time maybe like let's say 15, 16, they can enter the cage. So at this period we call them point of cage, where they can enter the cage, like let's say from 15, 16 weeks. So at this period you put them inside the cage and you still continue with the grower mart until the birds start to lay. Some birds start to lay at about 18 weeks of age. Some prolong their own till about 20 weeks of age before they start to lay. So it is this grower mart you still keep on giving them until about 1/3 of them start to lay. You know, it's always advisable to allow about 1/3 of them to start to lay so that they don't, you know, develop what we call prolapse. Because by the time you start to give them layer mass, immediately it can, you know, cause prolapse for them. So you allow them, at least 1/3 of them, to start to lay before you now change their feed to layer mass. But you want to change this feed. There's something I want to tell you. You don't just change the feed suddenly. You know, like you are giving them grower mass before, you want to change it to the layer mass. You have to mix the two feed together. A certain percentage of grower mass and the layer mass, you mix them together. You give them like 2 or 3 days before you now start to give them the layer mass permanently. At least to make sure that they don't react to that change in feed. So from about 18 weeks, from bird 20 weeks, the bird will start to lay. So from that period, the farmer will start to, you know, collect eggs and sell. The water you give to bird has to be as clean as the one you are drinking. So you don't just say because they are just animals, let me just give them dirty water. No, because it will bounce back. So we try to give them, you know, clean water. The water they are drinking is what we also drink on the farm. So we give them clean water, and then we also get their food from a very, you know, good source to make sure that you keep them warm. So you are welcome to the pen. This is the pen house where we have the laying bed. Like I said before, from the day old, when they are 8 weeks of age, we move them to the grower house. From the grower house to the pen. This is the pen where we have the laying beds. These beds, some of them they start to lay from 18 weeks of age. Some of them from 20 weeks of age. You can see this is the cage. This is their feeder, where we normally put the food. This is the laying mass for laying bed. This thing is made of 3 ingredients, majorly 3 ingredients. We have the maize here, we have the concentrates, and the wheat over. That's what we compounded together at a specific, percentage to make the ration for the laying beds. So this is their cup. You can see this is where the water runs. You know, this thing, if you look at it very well, you can see all the cups are red. They have red color, and there's a reason for that. You know, anything red, birds are very sensitive to anything red. You know, like the first time you put bird inside the cage, they won't know that the water is here, right? But the only thing that will make them to know, because they were very inquisitive, they want to find out what is here, because birds are very sensitive to red color. So when they see red, in an attempt to, you know, see what is there, water will start to come out. Then from that, they will know that this is where the water seed is. You know, unlike in the olden days where the water will be beside the feeder, these days we have the drinker, the nipples, where the water can, and it's connected to the tank. If you look at the back, we have the tank where the water is, coming from with a shade to prevent it from, being eaten up by the rays of sunlight, so that we always have a fresh water. So anytime we want to administer drug, we put the drug inside the tank, and from that the water will enter. As the bird peck this, nipple, the water will start to come out. The major problem we have in poultry farming, there are 2 major problems. One is the feed, and feed accounts for about 70% of the money that we spend, on the farm. And the second problem is, the second challenge is the the litters, how we manage the litters. So, but on this farm, we are privileged to have somebody that work every day. That's his own section. Every day they pack litters. Then the other pen that we are going to enter very soon, we have a pit method that it takes some days before we pack them. This is another pen, and there's some differences between this one and the previous pen we went into. You can discover here we have what we call a pit method, where the waste from the bed can be passing in. The advantage of this one is that the litters can stay for a longer period before you pack them, unlike the one where we have just have the floor. That one, you have to be packing them regularly. So that's another advantage that this one has. Then apart from that, you discover that we have industrial fan here. Like in the pen, we try to provide a good ventilation for the beds. So the purpose of industrial fan is to take it out from the pen to the outside. The heat, the pen, you take it outside. Then apart from that, we also have, you can see we have plantain around. The airs of planting plantains to provide a good ventilation for the bed. We normally pick like 2-3 times in a day. I see the attendant working inside the pen. So this is the other pen, and we have a better method here, unlike the previous two we have gone to. Here we have a flushing system. It's a pit, but whenever we want to get rid of the litters, we on our pumping machine, and if you look here, you can see the pipe through which the water can come out. So the water will flush the litters to the other end, and at the other end we have a pit there where all the litters will go to. So another thing I also want you to take note is that I always talk of the drinker, the red color. You can also see that this one is red too. So I want you to take note of this. Birds are very sensitive to anything red. So that's why you can see the nipple is red, the drinker too is red. And as you press the nipple, the water will come out. So, and as they take the water and they hit the feed, they will lay the eggs, because it is the feed they are eating that will help them to lay the egg. Here, the outputs and the inputs will determine the outputs. It is whatever you give them here that will bring them, that will lead to the eggs that they will lay, the quantity. I'm talking about the feed, the quality, and the required standard, the standard of the feed that is supposed to. As laying bird, the standard is that 1,000 birds have to be eating 5 bags per day. That's the standard. Though some farmers use their discretion because they want to, cut costs. Some can give like 4.5. On this farm, we mill our feed by ourselves. We don't buy it from outside because we have the machines. But what we do is that we buy the ingredients that we need, like the wheat over. This is the wheat over. Each bag of this one is 50 kilograms. We have the maize at your back. Then we have the concentrates here. This is the concentrates. It's very important that you have a scale in the feed mill. So during hot weather, what we do is that we use maize, like 400 kilograms of maize. The wheat over, the concentrate is 12 bags, which is 300 kilograms. Each bag is 25 kilograms. So we use 12 bags, making 300. So we add the 300 plus the 400 kilograms of maize, making 700. Then we now use 300 kilograms of the wheat over to make 1,000. That's during hot weather. But if it is cold weather like this period, the birds, like it's water, the feed that they eat that will help them to lay. So they need more heat, just like we warm up the day or two. The adult birds also need heat. So you can provide use charcoal or whatever to heat them up. So what we do is that we step up our energy level during cold weather, rainy season. So we try to increase our maize from 400 kilogram to 450. On this farm, we try to do what we call integrated farming. Because we have some lands, and thank God we have tractors, so we plant maize to still reduce the one that we buy. Because there is no matter the quantity that we plant, it cannot be enough to feed our bed. But that integrated farming I'm talking about is that we plant our maize. When we harvest the maize, they are dry. We have the maize sheller, bring them to the feed mill. We just buy the wheat over, buy the concentrates. We mix them here. We give them to the birds, right, to feed. The bird also give us another thing in return. Apart from the eggs, they also give us their waste, right, their litters. So we carry the litters again as organic manure. We take them to the feed again. The maize we plant, we try to use them to fertilize the. So that's what we call integrated farming. We try, it's like a circle. In the present day Nigeria, to operate the feed mill effectively, you have to have a generator. Then another thing I would like to say is that there is advantage in compounding your own feed rather than buying from market. Because what you buy from market, you don't know what people they mix together. But when you compound your home, you make sure that you use the standard, products, the materials that are okay. You compound it as and refine. Then apart from that, you are able to reduce the cost of producing the feed.
My name is Feva Ashege, and my question is, in the brooding house where the chicks live and also pass out their waste, can that waste affect the chicks?
The birds in the brooding house eating their litters, their waste, can cause disease to them. And that's why we normally give them some drugs and vaccine to prevent that. Like I said before, there's a particular disease we call coccidiosis that is transmitted from one bird to another through their waste that they pick on the floor. And the symptoms of that disease is their litters will be stained with blood, red stain, blood waste. They'll be passing it out. But to prevent that, that's why we normally give them, when you first collect the bird, there's a vaccine we call Immucos vaccine. You can give them Immucos vaccine. When you give them Immucos vaccine, that will last them throughout the period. But if you don't give them Immucos vaccine, another thing we normally do is that we give them anti-coccidiosis drug every 2 weeks at the brooding house.
My name is Femi. When we went to the pen, they were collecting eggs. Those eggs, can they later be hatched to become chicks? Because you said that chicks are gotten from eggs, right? So those eggs, can they later be hatched to become chicks, and then you start the process of rearing them all over again? Or you have to do something special to them before they can be hatched?
The eggs they were collecting are not fertile eggs, right? You can't use that one at the hatchery. Like this one are only, we call them table eggs, the egg that we just eat to nourish our body. The one being used in the hatchery, are the one that, like in reproduction, we only talk about mating of male and female, to produce an offspring. The same thing is applicable to birds too. So the male and female have to come together to produce a fertile eggs. It is the fertile eggs that you take to the hatchery, right, for them to hatch for you. So at a certain ratios, we normally put male and female together for them to meet. So when they meet, it is the eggs that comes out as a result of their mating that we take to the hatchery to do what? To hatch.
Raising chickens is becoming more popular and appealing to people who are not earning high incomes, have no access to loans or vast plots of land on which to farm, but who desire to raise chickens either for meat or eggs. Let us hear from another successful chicken farmer on how people can start a small-scale chicken farm and its potentials for success.
You could start with even 200, depending on, actually sometimes professional in the business will say maybe you start with 100 or 200. to have the feeling of the business before you now start knowing, okay, at least my birds could hit this much, and they could develop this kind of disease, or how to manage that kind of disease. And from there you start having your own facts, not facts that people have given to you. Because like I said, management is the key factor in this kind of business.
There is certainly a huge market for chicken rearing in Nigeria, but the question is, who will take the advantage of this huge opportunity and make it of economic importance to our great country, Nigeria? Could it be you? On that note, we conclude this episode of Agriculture, a Better Alternative, focusing on poultry farming. I am Chika Obona, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for your company. Bye for now.
Is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the You Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
As we are coming back from the farm, crossing a river, one will expect that we should wash the yam at the river. But in my place, traditionally we believe that once you wash the yam in the river as it's flowing, will flow away the yields of the yam. So on that note, we don't wash yam in the flowing river.
The Igedde people are the third largest ethnic group in Benue State, Nigeria, after the Tiv and Idoma people. With a population of over 250,000 people, the Igedde people have a unique cultural festival called the Igedde Yam Festival. The festival is celebrated annually by the Igedde people and their well-wishers across the globe every first day of Ihigile market in the month of September to usher in new yams.
The Igedde people are culture bound. They live by their culture. And one of those things that they really celebrate is to remember their ancestral father. We are great farmers. The Igedde people are great farmers. And they celebrate the yam. The king of the farm produce is, of course, yam. We celebrate it.
First of all, I want to make it clear that Igedde Yam Festival celebration has nothing to do with pagan celebration. It is not fetish. It is purely a cultural display. And this is a period when illustrious sons and daughters of Igedde, both in diaspora and nationally, come home. And this is also a period when the people who live within the villages are able to quickly ask for help from their sons who have distinguished themselves in one area or the other. So this period reflects community development effort.
Apart from the celebration of bountiful harvest, which is mostly yams, the Igedde Yam Festival provides the people with the opportunity of uniting together and charting a common cause. The festival has evolved over time to identify illustrious sons and daughters who distinguish themselves in various areas, including community development. Like other ethnic groups in Nigeria, the Igedde people are endowed with different cultural dances that spice up the festival.
Given the unique qualities that God has given us. And some of these qualities involves hard work, honesty, transparency, and happiness. So given those attributes, I'm happy to be an Igedde man.
Project the Igedde nation. Some are shy. Even well-placed Igedde people, to speak Igedde to their children is a taboo. I see these people with distaste. I see those people with wrong eyes because they're not doing the right thing. If you allow the Igedde name, the Igedde language to die, we'll hold you responsible.
Our programs are getting better and fresher. And it's because we are thinking about you. NTA, it's all about you.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Culture is seen as a people's way of life, with tourism as a vehicle through which lifestyle of the people is appreciated. The uniqueness of Nigeria's cultural diversity gives the country an added advantage to promote culture and tourism from north to south, east and west. Nigeria's culture and tourism potentials abound. This could be exploited to serve as source of revenue earner for the government. Unfortunately, it has not been so. The inability of the country to distinguish itself as a tourist destination and a hub of diverse cultural heritage has been a major concern to key players in the sector. Resuscitating culture and tourism in Nigeria is the focus of this special edition on The Correspondence. In support of an agenda by the Minister of Culture and Tourism, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, I am Lydia Bassi. Thanks for joining us. After a short break from the World Tourism Body, Nigeria attended the 58th World Tourism Conference in grand style with the determination to reform the sector for more viability. Correspondent Anthony Forson, who was in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, reports that Nigeria is on the verge of gaining its pride of place on the tourism map of the continent.
Since the wake of terrorist attacks across the globe, no sector has been spared of this dastardly act that leaves in its wake loss, pain, and grief. So, at this 58th conference of the World Tourism Organization for Africa, concerns were played up on security, and Nigeria's Information Culture Minister Lai Mohammed took the lead.
The whole of the world realized a long time ago that creative industry, precisely culture and tourism, are not only veritable vehicles for diversification of the economy, but that they will also help in creating jobs for the rural people, creating jobs for the youth. And the unique thing about tourism creative industry is that you don't need to bring anything to rural areas. These things are already there. All you do now is you build the capacity, prove on what is existing. You create a local economy by training them, and then you solve many problems. You solve the rural, urban migration. You solve the issue of crime. You reduce it, and at the same time, you create work for everybody. Most of the challenges we face in Africa in respect of tourism are about one and the same. The issue of security and safety is not only crucial and important for tourism, but that it is not a local affair. That is a challenge which is global in nature. And as such, we need better cooperation in sharing, security and intelligence information. We need better cooperation in assisting one another. And we should know that terrorism has no boundaries. And it's good to be competitive in tourism, but at the same time, there's a limit to that competitiveness. Again, tourism also makes for stability in the polity. Because once there's no restiveness, then you have stability in the polity. And also in tourism, you are solving more than one problem when you address the issue of tourism. We may still have a long way to go in Nigerian tourism, but at least we're on the right track.
It is very important because it touches on the livelihood of people, on jobs, on the political image of a place. The situation needs to be addressed in a global manner. This cannot be addressed at the national level or even at the regional level. We should acknowledge that a terrorism attack and the security problems are a global challenge, and it should be addressed at a global level.
How we can come together and to face all those challenges related with security, related with skill on technology, related with connectivity, because those issues are still challenges to boost our tourism in our countries.
While security concerns seem to be the main crux, the issue of sex exploitation through tourism and travels also came up.
Unfortunately, not all the travelers or the tourists in Africa come with good intention. Some predators are taking advantage of this expansion of tourism to access children and, of course, exploit them in Africa.
Having identified the issues raised as very fundamental and crucial to the desire to make tourism a viable business, a task force is to be set up to assist in collating the various views to be harmonized and made available for ratification. Ethiopia later won the hosting right for the 2017 edition of the conference. As part of activities lined up for the conference, the grand opening of the Côte d'Ivoire Tourism Fair was attended by participants who were exposed to the cultural endowment of Côte d'Ivoire. Information and Culture Minister, accompanied by the Nigerian ambassador to Côte d'Ivoire, were among the high-profile personalities that were guests at the fair. Away from the technical sessions where issues of how to promote the industry were discussed, gala nights and dinner rounds formed part of the events that shaped the 58th World Tourism Conference in Abuja.
Indeed, repositioning culture and tourism in a diversified economy is the way to go. Thanks a lot, Anthony. Yes, Nigeria is vast in tourism potentials with historical towns and highly diversified cultural heritage, but failure to transform them to tourism assets has been a serious challenge. Correspondent Oyinaya Kaluoka examines the sector and the way forward.
Nigeria is different, the land of great cultural and tourism potentials. A country with a history that goes back thousands of years is blessed by Mother's nature.
When I look at the rock, the stature, the beauty of it, well, I quickly remember that God is great. So because without God, no any other person can build such a thing.
With a population of about 170 million, more than 250 ethnic groups and many languages, Nigeria comes across as a top attractive destination in Africa. There are more than 100 tourist and cultural destinations that can account for over 1 trillion naira in national revenue if properly tapped. There is no better ways to explore and experience Nigeria's rich cultural heritage than the colorful celebration at the festivals.
Our grandfathers have done all this, but these our dresses, we have been doing it during war. So we are the warriors of the Kano State.
The over 700 kilometers of unpolluted sandy beaches are cooling and inviting. Behold the captivating and spectacular sights of carnivals amidst the warm people and friendly weather. The Nigerian culture and tourism assets are widespread and can contribute greatly to the gross domestic product if properly harnessed, as can be seen in other African countries. The tourism and culture industry in other African countries such as Kenya, Ghana, Tanzania, South Africa, and the Republic of Benin have been witnessing an unprecedented boom. Tourism has become Rwanda's #1 foreign exchange earner. According to the Rwanda Development Board statistics, the country recorded $370 million receipts from tourism in 2015. In Tanzania, tourism is now leading the economic sector, earning $1 billion, overtaking agriculture.
All over the world, every country in the world today is depending on tourism. Why? Because it is sustainable. Oil diminishes, it keeps going, just like we're seeing now, price up, price down. It's been going up and down quite a few times. The global contribution of GDP today is 10%. Now, you know that it's more than 10% because a lot of it is experience, so it's not everything that's been captured, but 10% is a sizable chunk. Countries like Gambia, for example, are doing 17.7% as of 2014. South Africa, 9%. Egypt, 13%. Even a country like Mexico, which has a similar population to Nigeria, is doing about 11.9%. What about a country like Kenya? Kenya is doing 12%. Brazil is doing 9.6%. Now, let me tell you the one that will blow your mind. Cuba, little Cuba. Cuba in 2013 was doing 6%. When the talk of embargo came up, people started visiting Cuba even more. Cuba's contribution to tourism today is about 11.2%, almost 12%, within 1 year's spread.
The reports in Nigeria in 2014 show that the direct contribution of tourism to the GDP in 2014 was 757.3 billion naira. While total contribution of travel and tourism, including jobs indirectly supported by the industry, was 1,837,000. In terms of investment in the industry in 2013, it was 264.2 billion naira. Imagine if more efforts are invested in the industry.
In 2013, the statistics that we had 4.033 million visitors into Nigeria. And in that 2013, the statistics show that 1 million out of that accounted for religious tourism. Now in 2014, the figure moved to 4.8 million visitors into Nigeria, and that accounts to about 4%. So Nigeria is just contributing only 4%. That is a contribution of GDP. That is without trying. Imagine if we made an effort to upgrade the facilities that are attached to the tourism sites. Imagine if we created infrastructure that works.
The third world countries in the last 15 years, the creative economies seem to be performing better and grows at the rate of 7% minimum per annum. For some countries, even 15%. It then means that in the absence of oil, the place we should be looking at is actually a tourism sector.
It's very important because it touches on the livelihood of people, on jobs, on the political image of a place.
The sector has suffered neglect in the areas of poor infrastructure, low level of global awareness, insecurity problem. The government has recognized the wide gap between these assets and the potential contributions of tourism to Nigeria.
Tourism sector is the sector that has largely actually private sector participation. Government has the role as to the extent of creating the enabling environment in terms of provision of basic infrastructure. Government also has the responsibility of having regulating the environment.
Nigeria experts say remain a gold mine as far as the tourism potentials are concerned.
Yes, indeed, Oyinaya. It is high time Nigeria's culture and tourism potentials were harnessed for economic development. Still to come, correspondence on the comparative advantage of culture and tourism in states across the Federation. Join us again.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Welcome back. You are watching The Correspondence. Let's take you to the culture and tourism potential of Cross River State, Nigeria. As a team player, Nigeria is caught in the web of recession, and industry players are currently brainstorming on how to utilize the abundant resources in the area of culture and tourism. Correspondent Habiba Oladipo takes a look at the possibility of diversifying the sector in Cross River State.
Tourism, as noted in the Manila Declaration of 1980, is an activity that is essential to life of any nation due to its direct and indirect effects on the economy sector. In Cross River State, from the plateaus of the mountain top of Obanliku to the rainforests of Afin, the waterfalls of Abonkim and Kwa, Cross River State is indeed endowed with many outstanding tourism potentials. The eco-monoliths Obudukatu Ranch, Mary Celestos Tomb, Obrubra Lake, Old Residency Museum, which holds many historical artifacts, and the Cross River National Park, and the Calabar Drill Monkey Sanctuary, which are homes to some endangered monkeys, have all drawn local and international visitors. All the cultural aspects, the foresight of the former governor, Mr. Donald Duke, saw the need to put the state on a global map by introducing Africa's largest street party, Carnival Calabar, to mix business with pleasure. Various local governments across the state were also given strong platforms to showcase their rich cultural heritage to the world through annual festivals such as the Igedde Yam Festival and other festivals geared at bringing visitors and investors alike to the state. Cross River State prides itself as one of the safest and cleanest states, with warm hospitality to draw visitors. The previous and current administrations have all come with innovative measures to sustain the serene and friendly environment with the hope of generating revenues and thereby creating jobs for its citizens. At the moment, Governor Ben Ayade-led administration has added innovative content to the yearly Carnival Calabar, which makes the event no longer a street party but a major revenue-yielding event. The State Commissioner for Information and Orientation, Mrs. Rosemary Achibong, said the last carnival brought into the state 11 countries of the world due to the enriched content Governor Ben Ayade added to attract more global interest to the state.
The christening of Carnival Calabar as the Green Carnival has attracted more international interests, and that means economic activities, because as this tourists come into Calabar, Cross River State, to participate in the Carnival Calabar, they're exposed to the other opportunities for business.
More so, Cross River State has been certified by the UNESCO as having some World Heritage sites which are of international standards and funding.
Cross River State is one state that has been endowed by God specifically for tourism and culture. We have the natural endowment, we have the self-created endowment, we have the events that attracts people.
We must take the assets with which nature has blessed us. Let it be our most important treasure. Let us use it to attract the world, because the sustainability of that attraction will definitely entrench the value chain with which we will propel other sectors of our state's economy.
Cross River State at the moment has set a stage on culture and tourism for other states in the Federation to emulate.
With the global recession in the oil sector and spiraling effect on the economy, there is no better time than now to diversify to other sectors, especially in culture and tourism. Thanks, Habiba. And now we take you to Plateau State, popularly known as the home of peace and tourism, where correspondent Eric Dungs examines the comparative advantage of the state in a diversified economy.
Plateau State has come to be regarded by many as a tourist haven, covering a landscape area of about 27,000 square kilometers. The state enjoys a relatively cool and favorable temperature, which attracts many to the state.
Because the weather was conducive, the white man was willing to try to allow his wife to give birth in Plateau. And in Nigeria, Plateau was the first place where a white child was delivered.
In spite of its tourist attractions like the famous Riom Rock Formation, Aso Falls, Hill Station Hotel, Plateau Hotel, among many others, there has been a rapid decline in these institutions thereby reducing its potential to generate revenue to the state.
The Rayfield Resort, which came about as a result of mining activities on the plateau, has the potential to expand the frontiers of tourism in Plateau State and indeed Nigeria.
In the last 20 years, no investment has taken place in the tourism sector in Plateau State. I know there was a time when government was budgeting almost just about 3 million, and that cannot do anything.
Culture is said to find expression in art, dance, folklore, language, literature, among others. As such, the popularity of Nigeria's art and culture, experts say, has greatly helped to promote tourism in the country as a veritable source of revenue.
At the time we were enjoying resources from oil, nations that had foresight used their oil revenue to develop their tourism potentials. A typical case in question
within and outside the state and even outside the country, that the message is that peace has returned to Plateau State. Now you can come and invest.
Plateau State alone boasts of over 50 indigenous ethnic groups, which account for the rich cultural heritage the state is known for. Experts are of the view that since culture is a way of life and tourism serves as its vehicle, cultural festivals in the state, such as the Nzembirom, Pusdung, Puskang, Gumaide, Puskat, among others, will provide veritable avenues in driving the sector. It is the consensus of stakeholders that a Nigeria beyond oil is possible, but concrete efforts must be taken to turn around the tourism and culture sectors as its potentials do not run dry.
Nigeria's cultural heritage with its glorious history is indeed a blessing. Many thanks, Eric. And on that refreshing note, we end this week's edition of The Correspondents. Keep it there with us next week on another edition. From all of us here, it's bye for now.
The finals of the Men and Women African Cup of Nations. It's always frenetic. On days such as this, there are no tribes, no religion. Here, Nigerian warriors are out to represent, to show the skills that makes us the best. On days like this, the color is one. The color is green. When we get the job done, it is because we have stuck together. When we celebrate, we stand together. Nigerians, united in victory. We are Nigerians. We are one.
A positive self-image is a major key to success in life. The development of a positive self-concept is extremely important to the happiness and success of children. Self-image is how we feel about ourselves, and our behavior clearly reflects these feelings. A child with a positive self-image will have the following characteristics: act independently, assume responsibilities, take pride in accomplishment, tolerate frustration, attempt new tasks and challenges, handle positive and negative emotions,
offer assistance to others. On the other hand, a child with a negative self-image will display the following traits: avoid trying new things, feel unloved and unwanted, blame others for his own shortcomings, feel or pretend to feel emotionally indifferent, be unable to tolerate a normal level of frustration, put down his own talent and abilities, be easily influenced. Negative self-image or low self-esteem in children tends to be related to physical punishment and withholding of love and affection by parents. Children with negative self-image rely on coping strategies that are counterproductive, such as bullying, quitting, cheating, and avoiding, to mention but a few. Although children will display some of these behaviors at times, negative self-image is strongly indicated when these behaviors appear with regularity. Parents, more than anyone else, can promote a positive self-image in their children. These they can do through words and action. As a parent, when you feel good about your child, mention it. Be generous with praise. Teach your child to practice making positive self-statement. Self-talk is very important in everything we do. Psychologists have found out that negative self-talk is responsible for depression and anxiety. As parents, avoid criticism that takes the form of ridicule and shame. Use
In favor of the motion, say aye. Those against it, say nay. The ayes have it. The House hereby resolves into an executive session.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyama, says funding and greater synergy among the joint multinational force are necessary tools in bringing the menace of terrorism to an end. He was discussing the fallout from the just ended second Regional Security Summit held in Abuja.
So all in all, we agree that it is important to have a mechanism, a more centralized mechanism. So this is what's been agreed pretty much, and this is what we intend to incorporate in a roadmap going forward.
The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development said that the 2016 budget of the ministry is designed to unlock all the challenges affecting food production in the country. Minister of State for Agriculture and Rural Development, Henneken Lukbobiri, said the ministry will ensure the full implementation of the budget. He said the budget covers agricultural research and promotion of investment in the sector.
We'll ensure that, within the limits of available resources, they have access to the funding as contained in the budget. And we're happy that all other donor partners, World Bank, IFAD, all of them are supporting research, from time to time. And without research, there's no way we can improve, a level of productivity. And we need to improve a level of productivity.
And those are the highlights of the news at this time. Thank you for watching.
This is the network service of the NTA.
let's not kid about it. There's still a whole lot of things that we have to pay attention to. Infrastructure is key. We have really not, as a country, over the last 30 years, invested in infrastructure in the oil sector. Our pipelines are about 35 years old, none has been replaced. We've not been able to put gas infrastructure in place. Our refineries are next to comatose and old. We're working very hard at them. Our depot facilities are critically on a breakdown stage. So no serious infrastructure has taken place, and no country in the world will expect that the price system in a country will benefit its citizens if it doesn't invest in its infrastructure. So rather than the energy we put on PMS, we need to begin to focus on building massive infrastructure in this country, all over the country. I know how much effort it has taken me to be able to pump products from the south to the north, from the south to the east, from the south to the west. It's been one battle after another. But the time has now come to go and invest in proper pipelines, proper tracking, proper buried levels, and begin to move with the world in what we're supposed to be doing. We have to look at refining. I've told you what our goalpost is on refining, and we're going to pursue that very aggressively. Because I do share the sentiments of most Nigerians that a country that produces 2.2 million barrels and has the capacity to produce more should not be in the business, quite frankly, of importing petroleum products. And I can assure you that I'm very firmly committed to that direction. We need to begin to look at our upstream. We have unwittingly killed the upstream. Today, there's no single rig operating in Nigeria. All the rigs are gone. When rigs go, it means that no meaningful exploration can take place. Why is that? Because we have not funded upstream. We're unable, quite frankly, to deal with our cash call payments. And every month, I labor as approvals are brought to me to sign upstream contributions, and I find that I'm contributing between 20 and 30% of what the oil majors have asked as our cash call contributions for which we have signed up. Why is that? Because income is dwindling. One of the things that I'm working on right now is in negotiating with them on how we can completely exit cash calls and let's be able to go into the banking sector externally and find the funding that we need to run our upstream sector and free the federal government from cash calls. So, like I said, at every given point, as the problems come, we're throwing a lot of energy and intelligence at them. We need to focus on gas. Oil industry is monolithic in its very nature, but we have concentrated only the crude. A huge amount of energy is required on gas. It requires a lot of investment, because unless we get gas back to the earning block, unless we provide the right gas temps, which we are working on finalizing now, unless we attract the right kind of investment in gas and gas infrastructure, we will leave a very huge amount of assets in this country undeveloped. We're not going to get the kind of power that we need. We're not going to get the kind of parallel income that we need. And those are areas where we need to put a lot of energy into. We need to continue to engage the general public and sensitize them on the challenges of this sector so they see what we face. Because I think that the average Nigerian is so intelligent that if he gets the facts, understands what the problems are, he will act accordingly. I point all this out largely so that you will see that the oil industry is bedeviled with tons and tons of problems which require very immediate attention, where we are going to be called on as leaders to make decisions that are critical for the survival of this. I have had questions asked in terms of what are the social palliatives of this. The first response I tend to give on social palliatives, whenever you have an increase, everybody says, okay, what are you passing back? First, let's understand what we're doing. The only amendment we have done to the template is an amendment on FX-based pricing. So there's no palliative coming from the 50% importers. They're simply getting enough money, hopefully, to find the FX, and that's still not going to be easy. Let's not make a mistake about it. There isn't a guarantee that that secondary market is buoyant enough or deep enough to fund an average of $550 million that is going to be required for them to do this. But we've tried to circumvent that by, like I said, bringing in individuals who are willing to sell in Naira, continue to use our DSDP program to provide more product fluidity. But the first palliative you're actually going to see is that if we keep to 100% of our FAC contribution out of our 445, states will get the money that they require, and a permanent basis will come. I also need to add in terms of those palliatives that, of course, more workforce will be created. Today, if we continue what we were doing, we had the risk of losing close to 400,000 jobs in the downstream sector. Today, I'm sure you're aware that we've lost literally over 350,000 jobs in the upstream sector. Dealing with these issues will enable us to go back to an economic sanity that will ensure that these jobs don't get lost. In fact, rather than lose jobs, we'll create about 200 to 300,000 more jobs in the upstream sector. I have added in your materials a few of the frequently asked questions, and if you spend time, and I urge you please to spend time to look at them, you find that a lot of the answers, quite frankly, to questions that you frequently asked have been answered. I think God, in His infinite mercies, deemed it fit to have your representatives, have your communities elect you to occupy this very important position at a very critical time in the life of this nation. At a time when issues of very critical importance are surfacing. And today provides you, like many others, a critical opportunity to make critical decisions on a matter that is very critical to our nation. I urge you, honorable members, to please take it with the seriousness that it deserves. I have played my little role as a technocrat, pointing out what the direction should be and providing solutions. His Excellency the President has played his role by giving guidance and approvals where we need to so that we can move forward. I urge you and plead with you that it is your turn, individually and collectively, to play your role for our country, for our country's survival at this critical time. May God give you the courage that you need to take the right decision. The issue is not what happened in 2012, I keep repeating. The issue is your positions today. Because as leaders, you are bound to change positions given the exigencies of the moment. That is a responsibility you owe your communities and you owe the Nigerian nation. There's a criticality of today that requires an urgency of now, and that is what we are focusing on. Again, I repeat that at no moment in the history of this country have we faced a matter so plain, so functional, so determinate of our rebirth, so critical to the oil sector, so critical to our states and their income streams, and so critical, quite frankly, to the convenience of Nigerians. At no time have we faced an issue so essential to our survival and our regrowth as a nation than this issue that we face today. Therefore, honorable members, today, this moment, this time, now, I urge you, please, with God's guidance, to do what is absolutely essential and deal with a situation which has, quite frankly, no other alternative if we are to survive as a nation. I thank you very much for listening. May God bless you all. May God bless you all. May God bless our president. May God bless Nigerians. Thank you very much.
A seat so that we can commence the dialogue. Now, honorable members, we've all heard him. First of all, if you have any information that is not provided, or if you think that what has been provided is not correct, you can now give us the information. Any additional information, or if there are any materials in the presentation that you think are not factual first. Honorable Goni.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Right, Honorable Speaker, Kubu Dogara. My respected colleagues, I am Right Honorable Gonibu Karlawan, member representing Bursari, Gaydam Nusari, and from Yobe States. Honorable Minister, you are welcome to the House of Representatives, the home of justice. Mr. Speaker, my question is that before the removal of the subsidy, the official price was 86.50 kobo. when the federal government announced the removal of 17 naira point 70 kobo, the subsidy, you only add the removal, that price of the subsidy, that is 17 naira point 50 kobo to 86.50 kobo naira. It will give you 105 naira per liters. My question is that, how do you arrive to 145 naira per liter? Thank you.
There is no issue of cautioning first. If we have accepted that what has been presented is factual, that's the fact. If you want to challenge anything that has been, if there's none, then we move to questions. So we have all accepted that what is presented is factual, no errors, no corrections. So let's move to questions now. No, let's move to questions now. We will take two. Okay, Honorable Philip Shabu wants to challenge the facts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my distinguished colleagues. I remain Comrade Shabu Philip, representing the good people of Isako West, East, and Central, and from Edo State. Honorable Mr. Sir, from your question and answer section of this document, and flowing from what you have said and what I've heard you said elsewhere, it is obvious that our refineries are obsolete. And I can relate it to buying a new car and buying a Tokumbo car. Who goes to mechanic frequently more, the Tokumbo man compared to the new one? That's how refineries is. From your question here, I'm seeing that in 2018, you get all the refineries working. Is it the obsolete refineries that you are struggling to maintain, or new refineries that you are coming? Then
that's the question, Honorable Philip Shuaibu. That's the question, please.
2019. No, it's on the document.
We are going to questions now.
Okay.
And then we'll start from this row. Honorable Dixon Taki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Welcome, Honorable Minister. My name is Honorable Dixon Taki. I represent Makurdi Guma Federal Constituency. I'm from Benue State. Honorable Minister, my first question is this. We are talking about deregulation of the downstream sector. Nigerians know that this day will come, even though our people are pained that it has come at this time that 27 states have not been able to pay salaries to their workers. And then you drop this thing in their labs without information, without education, so that they will either prepare or that. Now my question is, why, if we're deregulating the downstream sector, why do we place a cap on the ceiling of the prices? Because if we are encouraging other people to come in and invest in this sector, I thought that we should leave the prices to market forces. It's standard practice that market forces will allow prices go down on their own or go up if there are no players. That's my first question. Second question is, you talk about palliatives, the monies that will be paid to graduates. What are the modalities your ministry or government is using to choose those unemployed graduates? It's here.
So Dixon will take your first question. We'll move to Honorable Yakubu.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My honorable colleagues, I have...
Please, honorable members, no comments, just go straight forward to your question so that we can save time, please.
My name is Yakubu Abiodun Balogun, representing the good people of Lagos Island 2 Federal Constituency. Well, the question is that I listened to the Labour president this morning on AIT, and what he was saying was that at the meeting that you held that led to the 145 naira per liter, it wasn't that amount that was actually agreed, and even the 120 naira per liter that was agreed by those at the meeting, he said he wanted to go and tell the other members of his union so as to bring the final something. Just then, they had the announcement. Secondly, sir, what is the landing cost to NNPC or to the private marketers of a liter of petrol? Thank you very much.
Honorable Dr. MS, when we're done with this row, we'll formally move here, so please put your hands down.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Minister, my question is not on the details of your presentation, but on the situation on ground nationally. We are in a democratic setting, and we have separation of powers, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. And we have also a decision-making, if you like, channels and processes for taking national importance decisions. I want to ask you, why is it that you did not follow or toe the line of constitutionality by channeling your decision to deregulate this very important lifeline sector of our economy by following strategic decision of national importance, in other words, by when you do all your studies, you bring it to the National Assembly. We look at it, even if we will now look at it over the weekend like it is done. The best practice is all over the world. And you just implement it, and now you are coming to do damage control. That's my question to you. Thank you.
Honorable Nibe.
The Right Honorable Speaker, my dear colleagues, the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, may I start first by commending your superlative performance since your appointment. Since your appointment as both Group Managing Director of NNPC and Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum. I am Honorable Anayam Nebe. I represent Oka North and South Federal Constituency of Anambra State. Honorable Minister, my question is very simple. You have raised the price of petroleum to 145 naira. But it is a clear fact that before the increase in the price, that there was no filling station in the southeast that was selling below 130 naira per liter. And my question is, what effort are you making to ensure that the dealers in the southeast comply with the government directive? Because if you allow it like this, they may be selling at 200 naira per liter in the southeast, while in Abuja it sells at 145 naira. So it is very important that you intervene in the southeast, so that what operates in other parts of the country should operate in the southeast. That's my question.
We'll take more from this row. Deputy Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, honorable Minister. I believe that whatever you have written here is not only true, but what we have an idea about. My question is, why? Because even contained in this document, we are still shying away from taking the bull by the horns. Because I listened carefully to you. Why are we running away from the evil day that will catch up with us? You are regulating, you are deregulating, you are not deregulating. Who is fooling who? And if you are deregulating and you want to do price advisory, couldn't it be done confidentially without necessarily coming to Nigerians and slamming price control on them. And the price control is neither acceptable, would not easily be acceptable by the buyers, and even the sellers will be skeptical because we don't know how far this your price regulation will go.
MB.
Why are we shying away from taking the bull by the horn? Thank you.
Honorable Prestige.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Prestige Osi. I represent Aba North, Abasa Federal Constituency. I'm from Abia State. Honorable Minister, sir, I have few questions, please. One, what is your ministry doing to enforce this one, your 145 naira? Because I know as at now, some people are also selling 200. Secondly, you mentioned that PPPRA will now be allowed to regulate. We know before this time that it's PPPRA that announces price adjustment of petroleum products. But now, your ministry has taken over that particular duty of announcing prices of petroleum products. Is it because of your inability to inaugurate the board of PPRA? Because I know that there is no board in place. Or that you have decided to keep PPRA by the side in order to enable you to do what you want to do. Again, what is the daily output of the locally refined products? You've not told Nigerians what is the quantity that is being produced by our refineries, whether they are dead, fully dead, or half dead. If they are producing, say, 10 liters a day, how much will that be sold to Nigerians? Will it still sell at the same price with those that are imported from wherever all over the world? Again, sir, you also said here that NNPC will also be important alongside these major marketers. If NNPC will be important, I suppose, at 197 naira per dollar, as against the major marketers sourcing their foreign exchange from the secondary market, at what price will NNPC be selling these products to Nigerians? Because we ought to know. We also want to get these clarifications, Mr. Honorable Minister. Yesterday, I read from the papers where the VP said there is no deregulation. That what we are having is price differential based on the exchange rates. They are not deregulating yet. Could you please tell this House so that we can tell our people whether we have deregulated or because of the differential in exchange rates? We also want to know. And, okay, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sajos Ogun. Sajos.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My highly esteemed colleagues, I am Sergius Ose Ogun. I represent Eastern Southeast, Eastern Northeast, and I'm from Edo State. Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum, I welcome you here today. I want to appreciate the measures and the steps you have taken, especially in the upstream sector. Yeah, because he mentioned them, so I will refer to them in his presentation. But having said that, I think where I believe you have struggled is the downstream, and I will quickly point them out. When crude oil was $20-something, some of us said that was the right time to deregulate. I think delay in making that decision is part of what we are struggling with today. Then, we have always known, and you have pointed them out here, that Nigeria, is still the lowest price destination in West Africa. And then, by whatever this price is called, whether it's liberalization or deregulation, it will stop smuggling and diversion. If we knew all this why, we should have deregulated long ago. Because we have enough market here and in the sub-region. Okay, well, the third one here is the international. Now, you mentioned 3 international companies that are willing to bring in products, even to sell in Naira. So again, my question is, we did not deregulate when we should have done that. What we have done right now, I am struggling to ask some questions because my colleagues have asked, so I don't want to repeat myself. It's because we have deregulated supposedly AGO and DPK. So what is the issue with petroleum, with PMS? Because when we did those ones, when we did Kero and DPK and AGO, we didn't fix any price. And from even what you said, from the announcement and what has been published, those ones are running well. Even diesel is coming down. So why PMS? Why are we involved in capping it? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Flatter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is Bokar Hassan Fulata. I'm from Jigawa State. Honorable Minister, from your presentation, it is very clear that what we are going through is not deregulation, but a mere price increase. You have also told us that no subsidy. Yet, PAF, Petroleum Equalization Fund, will continue to do its function of equalizing the prices. Honourable Minister, if you look at the templates of the pricing of the products, the aspect dealing with NTA, the National Transport Average, where marketers contribute and claim, that aspect is being paid for by the consumer. In essence, consumers under this arrangement are still subsidizing marketers for the transportation costs. Why do you retain this aspect under a policy of deregulation? Thank you very much.
Honorable Benila.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues. Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, my question, or rather, first my comment, is about bringing attention to a very similar situation that occurred in the past. If Nigerians read this day, up to date, the regulation of common sense approach, our now House leader condemned almost everything that is happening today, because back then it was a different government and a different time, and his comments were very clear. Before any increase is made in the price of fuel, the poverty level of Nigerians should be considered. What is the minimum wage now in this country? The minimum wage is about 20,000 naira. 18,000 naira, please correct me, Honorable Member. And most Nigerians can hardly afford to put 3 square meals on their table. Is this the right time to talk about a fuel increase or fuel hike or subsidy removal or whatever it is? Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, is this the right time to bring this to this country? Secondly, this same government promised that all our refineries will be working in 1 year, fully functional. Is that what we have? Has the APC government provided that? Are refineries working to the extent that they should be? Aggravate the situation, which is already very fragile on ground. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, I'm sure that you have enough questions now, so please respond to the questions that have been asked, and then we'll take more from the other rows.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The first question that was asked was on how we arrived at the 145 naira pricing. And it was very simple. If you take the template previous and now, what will change basically is the foreign exchange component. You apply the secondary market ruling numbers of about 285 and you get those numbers. We asked refineries, are we dealing with the obsolete ones? Are we dealing with the new ones? We're dealing with both. Refineries last about 50 years all over the world. It is not age that is the issue, it's maintenance. And what we need to do is to go in and maintain those refineries. already gotten into a point where at least 3 of them are working today. They've never been in that situation for over 8 years. So there's a potential to get them back to about a 90% capacity. We're going just down the road, Ivory Coast has a refinery just as old as ours. It's still working till today, managed by experts. In fact, a week ago, I went over there to try and see if I can get some cargo for Nigeria. So it is maintenance that is our issue. So we're not going to throw away the so-called obsolete refinery. They're not obsolete, they're just ill-maintained, and we need to maintain them. In addition, we have also advertised for 3 locative refineries. We call them co-location refineries because we want to share the benefits of those refineries being in the same land space as the current refineries, where they share power, they share the pipelines, they share the tankage space. It makes it less expensive. So those both refineries are going to be worked on. Member Dixon from Akode asked me deregulation, the timing. Why did we place a cap on ceiling of price? Well, let me point out something here. The reality is that AGO and Kero, I think I pioneered the attempt to pull out, privatize those, as it were. But the consumption of AGO and Kero is probably about 15% of the consumption of PMS in the country. So PMS is a lot more politically volatile product. And so in reaching out to a liberalized market, and you see I've used the word very carefully, when economists sit down with you and say, what is deregulation? It has very many components. And I think we're going to ultimately, hopefully get there, but that's not where we are today. Where we are is that we're giving you a full liberalized environment, and those will ultimately lead you to where you want to go. And the reason we have placed some level of upward cap on it is for the same reasons that you are complaining that this is not the right time, we don't want to take advantage of Nigerians, is to make sure that somehow in a transitory mode, those prices flush in and quietly settle. Once the marketers have begun to do what they're supposed to do, and the environment is operating very liberally and operating efficiently, and our refineries begin to get to a state where they're actually working, you'll find that the regulation will take its natural course. The regulation is not necessarily something you put by virtue of a caveat or a policy direction. It is a system of business activities that leads you to a certain conclusion on the theory. So you don't go from theory to the practice. The practice will lead us to the theory that you're concerned about. We talked of palliatives. I already mentioned the palliatives. The question was, how do we ensure that the beneficiaries of those palliatives are well selected? I want to trust that the federal government will do those. NNPC and ministry is not necessarily the one who's going to do that function. They said the union did mention that we had an agreement on 120. That is not true. We had an agreement on 145. We met them copiously. We dealt with the templates. They were part of that template discussion. And as a matter of fact, they were the ones who indeed counseled that there was a need to ensure that the selling price of NNPC, which could be lower, should be as close to those of the private marketers, for the simple reason of the fact, 2 things. One, if you sell at lower prices for NNPC in the city centers, you have complete chaos. When we sold at a 650, it doesn't quite follow those rules. But we're going to try and enforce. Every effort is going to be made. It's not just the work of PPRA and DPR. We're going to be relying also on the governors. We've been able to build a wide coalition involving governors and their security apparatus to ensure that they help us. And they were very helpful during the periods when we had to address the queue supplies. So we're going to be using that to try and enforce. Looking at the data that I was fed in the last 2 days, literally every part of the country is enforcing 145 now, other than 1 or 2 cities, again in the southeast, and we're addressing that already. The deputy whip asked, why couldn't we have just confidentially announced this figure just like we did when we did Kero, just like we did when we did AGO, and then taken out the cap and let the prices be determined by themselves? Again, for the reasons that I mentioned, which is just to watch the beginning environment, and because of the volatility, once we get all the buy-in, I think these things gradually, futuristically, will take a different pattern of approach. But it was very critical that we manage this very carefully. There was a mention of PPPRA board. The president is considering that, and I think they're working on that. I don't think there's any decision not to appoint PPPRA, but I think they were being taken along with all the boards that are being created. But I think His Excellency realizes the urgency of this and is addressing that. You said what volume does local refineries produce? Currently 9 million liters. What price are those going to sell? Again, the same reason I gave you as for NNPC sales. Realize that one of the reasons why the refineries are hot is that most times we sell products out of the refineries at a regulated environment. And once you do that, you do not have money to maintain the refineries. So it is important, under the new restructuring that we did, if you remember, refinery is now being run collectively as one divisional entity. And they're going to be looking at their P&L, capturing their income and seeing how they can help maintain going forward their infrastructure. I think that if we capture a lot of the money that they make under this setting, working with the new price band, they'll have a bit of margin to be able to begin to address refinery maintenance. NNPC, what will NNPC sell for? Currently, we're selling for 135 in the hinterlands. We're selling for 143, I think, in some stations, and 145 in some. Ultimately, we will look at those because the reality is that NNPC could sell less. But the question we have to determine is whether it is better for NNPC to sell less than create a fraudulent caveat of diversion. Because I have not been able to, I cannot give you the assurance that I'll monitor every sale to an NNPC filling station through a truck and be sure that it gets there and is sold at that subsidized price. Because if you don't, those products will end up in the stations of the marketers, again, through a fraudulent diversion. So the question is whether to do that and then in addition cause the chaotic traffic situations, or to take that earnings, the extra earnings on that, and pass it back to Federation account to be able to address issues on a holistic basis. We're looking at those and we're going to come up with some responses. And your opinions on this obviously will be very helpful. Mention was made of what the Vice President said in terms of this not being deregulation, but this addressing exchange rate. I think everybody's trying to run away from the nomenclatures. You know, quite frankly, at the end of the day, the practice on the field will tell you where we have arrived. I wouldn't want to go into the economic semantics of what it is called. I've called it liberalization, but you are the one talking. I've called it liberalization. I have called it liberalization. Now, East to South, why have we not deregulated? I think, like I said, the question is obvious. I think this helps you liberalize the field, and the regulation will follow its own due course as practice happens. We've seen AGO work, we've seen DPK work, and that is true. And I believe that PMS ultimately will work in such a way that the prices will also be impacted. Today, we're selling AGO at 30% less than the market even predicts, and we should be able to get that with PMS. Is this the right time to do this? There's never a right time. Where we are today, it is a time that is inevitable. It wasn't an issue of could we or couldn't we. We're in a situation where we have no option, really. If we have to pay salaries, if we have to continue development, if we have to survive as a country. So I think the time has been thrust on us by destiny and by fate. I think those were the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My respected colleagues, the Honorable Minister. My name is Honorable Leo Kuwe Ogo, representing the Soko Federal Constituency. I'm from Delta State. Let me first and foremost state clearly that you came in with the concept of dialogue. And for me, I believe this is more like putting the cart before the horse, because this decision has already been taken. And it's like, you know, passing the information of your decision to us. The issue here I want to raise, my Honorable Minister, and I see you like a technocrat. In 2012, our former President, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, decided to remove subsidy. In the issue of your budget, you said clearly to us, or rather your Vice President said also, that they have not removed subsidy. But in the budget itself, there was no provision for subsidy. So I really cannot see the explanation where you didn't provide for budget that you presented, and you are telling us that, you know, that subsidy has not been removed. So it beats my imagination. That may be another nomenclature. Now, the issue here, my honorable minister, is that in 2012, our former president, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, decided to remove subsidy in the interest of the project Nigeria. And the present government that we are all part of, including the president with all due respect, and all of them all over the country, raised that issue of, save Nigeria. Now, I put a question to you as a technocrat in retrospect. Looking at the savings we will have made so far, from that 2012 to date, we're probably close to almost, if I'm not wrong, almost 6 trillion has gone down the drain. Don't you think President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan was a man that saw tomorrow? There are two. Two. Cool down. Let me land now, please. Two. In being patriotic, knowing fully where we will have been today, may I say that in looking at the scenario, as a nation, vis-a-vis being patriotic, don't you believe we owe that government an apology? It is important. Please let me land. This is not your issue. It's my issue. I'm asking a question. I'm looking at issues that are before us because I believe that if all of us have taken the right decision at the appropriate time, like you are taking this decision now, and we oppose it just for playing the politics, I don't think it is in our interest. That was purely opposed in playing some form of politics. Now, in looking at the scenario, what do you think should have been the right decision? I put a very simple question to you as a technocrat. Thank you.
Honorable, Deputy Minority Leader.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Mine is a very simple, straightforward question. Honorable Minister, you put a lower limit of 135 naira and an upper limit of 145 naira. Don't you think, if we're going forward with this, that you should remove the lower limit? Because if I import fuel at 80 naira, for instance, and I want to sell it at 100 naira, it's illegal from what you did. So, and I know a lot of importers can do that. So why not? My own is like a suggestion. Why don't you remove the lower limit and leave? Why don't you remove the lower limit and leave the upper limit? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Wale, okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My fellow colleagues, our guest, I'm Oluwole Oke. I represent Oboku, Oriade Federal Constituency, who have in unison rejects the price increase. But, Mr. Speaker, I've gone through the submission of the Honorable Minister of State, and Mr. Speaker, assuming without conceding, with the templates and all the issues that have become vast in this submission, Mr. Speaker, and taking into cognizance, into consideration, sir, the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, particularly Section 14, Sub 2B, Section 16, Sub 1, A and B, which dwell on the functions of government. How do you want to go about that? Specifically, I agree and I concur with subsidy removal, which I refer to PDP economics. And I thank you for being pragmatic for adopting PDP economics. Honorable Minister, if I were to be in your shoes, I agree that we need to remove the subsidy because it has been enjoyed by few cabal. and that the subsidy they are removing can be spread to Nigeria in other sectors, education, road, health, power, and all that. My approach, if I'm in your shoes, will have been that, okay,
thank you.
Are you done with the question? So she has spoken for all from Northeast. Northwest, I take Honorable Shehu Garba. Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My honorable colleague, my name is Shehu Garba. I represent Jama Sanga Federal Constituency. I'm from Kaduna State. Honorable Minister, my question is very simple. I want to find out, at the current price of 145 naira per liter,
in transportation prices. However, we must remember that, like a tree that falls over one fine afternoon, the termites have been eating away inside the tree for many years.
Honorable members, please take your seats and let's have some silence, please.
How we got
Order.
to this point where our refineries have not kept up in terms of maintenance. Secondly, I would like the Honorable Minister to enlighten the House about the progress that has been made with refineries licenses that had been issued over the last 2-3 years, and how come none of our local refineries are still working apart from the LMA and the Kaduna refineries. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So all the zones have taken their turns from this row. We'll move here, Southeast, Nena, Elendo, Ikeji.
Thank you very much.
Order, please.
Much.
Silence, please.
Thank you very much for yielding the floor to me, Mr. Speaker, sir. Nena Lendu, KJ, member representing Bende Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm from Abia State. The Honorable Minister, I'd like to welcome you to the very hallowed chambers of the House of Representatives, and I'd like to ask a couple of questions. I listened with rapt attention to your submission, and you speak to the paper, but let me, before I even do that, speak to the minority leader of the House and state very clearly that it is evident that when you're in the driver's seat, the view is very different from when you're a passenger. But having said that, Honorable Minister, I want to ask you certain questions. And you know, you speak to running away from the nomenclature. You speak to liberalizing, deregulating, whatever word it is. I'd like to ask you that post-liberalization, post-deregulation, post-subsidy, whatever, to borrow your words, nomenclature you choose, what price modulation, what are the immediate, midterm, long-term plans to halt importation of petroleum products? Because that is the issue, I believe. And Honorable Minister, I've listened to you and I've seen that you have spoken very glowingly and flowingly about these issues. But I'd like some exact timelines. I want timelines that this House can hold you to. I want timelines that the Nigerians can hold you to. Because the reason for that is that we believe that the reason that Nigerians are groaning under what it is that you present to us today is the fact that we have hope that tomorrow will be better. So we want to know when this importation will stop, when we stop subjecting ourselves to the market forces of your deregulation, liberalization, in such a way that eventually Nigerians will actually start to benefit from the fact that we are an oil producer nation. That is one question. My second question, Honorable Minister, is that with the oil price crash, we should be boosting our production. And you spoke about it, you glided over it. You spoke about, you glided over it. I heard something like that, but you just glided.
The government can only regulate NNPC price. But you cannot do that for the other marketers because they source funds from outside. So there's no way you have somebody that changed money for maybe 380 naira, and you ask the person to fix a price for somebody that paid. It's not possible. So what we're going to have right now, assuming this goes on, because this is like a fair company that you presented to the House this afternoon, what we're going to have going forward is a complete deregulation. Now, my question is,
issue that has to do with the lives and well-being of the people of Nigeria, in large numbers, 270 million Nigerians. To begin with, on page 3 of your presentation, you spoke about the diminished foreign supply situation, which you said forced on you, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, 90% supply responsibility of this nation, without mentioning the price that it cost you to import this 90%. In making a presentation like this, values are important. I would like to know what value is that 90% that you imported since October 2015? That is number one. Why is this value important? It's because you claim you saved $1 billion over the period. Equally, we know that in the presentation,
Yes, okay.
The second one.
Please, you have spoken enough. Okay. For South-South, Honorable Daniel Reneju.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues. I remain Honorable Daniel Reneju, representing Warri Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues,
Northwest, Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, but please straight to your question, please. No boring intros.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, my name is Honorable Abbas Tajuddin. I represent Zaria Federal Constituency of Kaduna State. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Honorable Minister is on
You know, oil has a multiplier effect. If one sector of the economy is affected, every other sector of the economy is being touched. Then finally, the question is to Honorable Minister once again. You are the Minister.
The ability of small-scale industry to perform very well in the economy. Thank you very much.
We have listened to all the zones from that row.
Because so that we want to encourage others, so that at the end of the day, we don't want to see people that will say, I am not interested about serving our dear nation. Thank you.
Silence, please.
I was wondering whether has become
of your presentation, you looked at the pace of members of this House and speaking to Nigerians to tell them that you are taking a very costly decision at a very critical time. And the decision you have taken is one that is trying to source for a solution to problems that have been created, not just this time, over the years. This is a very good clarification. And I think it's an important point that we need to commend you for being bold to tell Nigerians that we are trying to solve a problem created in the period of several other years in history. And my question that comes to you at this point, Honorable Minister, honorable colleagues, is that in the course of your submission, you made a very critical reference to the drop we have in the volume of the crude we secure daily, which by the projections of the year 2016 budget is put at 2.2 million barrels a day. You've critically stated that because of the renewed sabotage and the vandalism of the pipelines in the Niger Delta area, it has dropped by over 800 million per day, 800,000 per day, dropping to about 1.4 million barrels per day. One would have expected you to, at that point, which I will now want to ask you, to share in confidence with Nigerians and the House of Nigerian people. What plans are you really taking, practically, genuine plans, to resecure the Niger Delta in the face of this renewed vandalism? It's a very important point because you are discussing with the Parliament here, where we have relevant committees that interface or synergize with relevant government agencies, including the security agencies. Taking this advantage to share with us in confidence what you are doing about the security of the Niger Delta will place our committees at a vantage position to help to create an enabling environment for relevant agencies, vis-a-vis security agencies or other relevant agencies, to resecure Niger Delta area where we have this thing coming from them and resecure our pipeline processes in Nigeria. That's my question. I thank you.
Leader, please. Just round up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. And look at the provisions of section perhaps 51 or 58 thereabout, or 59, 51 or 59. And let us try and reconcile it, because that talks about hikes in prices, lowering of prices, and it implies that those things should be brought for enactment in the National Assembly. So let us look at it, because I think whatever we do, we need to do it within the confines of the law. Perhaps, of course, we can describe this as another doctrine of necessity. But, Honorable Minister, there's something I believe you have not done. And I believe you have dropped the ball in going around and communicating, and I'm not talking about you as a person, I'm talking about the government, in communicating to Nigerians. There's something, I started doing my research, because the impression people have today is that this problem is isolated to Nigeria. A lot of people believe that this is a peculiar problem, peculiar to Nigeria. Honorable Minister, there's something I read called crude awakening. Not rude awakening, but crude awakening. What you have not done is a comparative analysis of what is happening to all oil-producing countries in the world. In doing my little research, I found that even Russia, that is 70% dependent on oil, has hiked its interest rates to 17% to strengthen its ruble. Venezuela, 60% inflation, declared a 60-day economic emergency, and they began to raise taxes, which we haven't done. Well, here's one for you, because members have asked and the public have asked, why would you deregulate and cap at the same time? How about protective deregulation, which is exactly what you have described here? Perhaps you will want to elaborate on that. Protective deregulation in the sense that you are protecting the masses from exploitation of the few. And these are the issues that I think we should engage people more. And I think you have made a mistake. Some of us have even gotten into trouble because of that. My position has been well documented. Members have knocked me here. My articles in 2010 have been published in the papers today. But like you have rightly said, this is about the urgency of now. The exigencies are different. We will run into trouble if we don't go the way other OPEC countries are going. And that is my position, and I would like you to clarify that with members. Thank you very much.
Okay, Minister, before you respond, there are two questions here from some Nigerians. Number one, I want you to note that this so you can respond to it. They said, what measure have you put in place for quality control? They want to know that. A second question is that how long will it take to have sufficient refineries in place? And will it be possible by then to have reduction in the pump price? Will this ever happen in our lifetime? Those are the questions. And then someone wants to know about the Ogoni cleanup and then gas flaring, what you intend to do with gas flaring and Ogoni cleanup. So now, Honorable Minister, please, you may wish to respond.
I like the coinage of urgency of yesterday. Perhaps that tells my story better. But the reality, like I've emphasized, is we're in such dire straits that if there were other options open to us, we probably would have explored it. But our income stream, our foreign exchange reserve position, the need to address these issues quickly and bring back our to do something when we are faced with stark realities of difficulties, I think we'll be failing our polity. Is it deregulation? Is it liberalization? One thing I do know is that going forward, as much as is possible, the private market sphere will help us determine the prices of these products. Because the reality is that no matter how much we do, those individuals who have been moved, like we correctly said, to the secondary market, will have the opportunity to sell their prices at a price that gives them enough compensation to create incentive to continue to bring. Now, whatever title we call that, the time will tell what it has become. But we must not also fail in our responsibility, like the majority speaker pointed out, to ensure that in doing this, and all over the world, that's been the situation. You do not have perfect regulation all over the world. Governments have a responsibility, even in the US, to ensure that prices do not go asunder. Ultimately, the hope is that market forces tend to help you determine your pricing. And so that if you decided fairly ridiculously to get into a pricing environment that is far in excess of what the general market trend is, you'll be left with your product in your tanks. And that may well happen. But in the transition introductory phase, it will be a grave error, in my view, not to ensure that we're at least keeping a watchful eye on those. And I buy the suggestion of the honorable member who said that we should de-emphasize the lower band and emphasize more the upper band, and he's absolutely right. The only reason why we talk of 35 to 135 to 145 band is to capture the NNPC activity. We have placed no band at all in terms of the marketers who are bringing in products, because we expect, like in the case of AGO, that the trending behavior of pricing will be such. I need to study again what really has happened to some of them, because those haven't been brought, quite frankly, to my attention since I resumed. But different from that, we've had about 65 modular refinery licenses issued out. Nobody has come forward yet, taking advantage of those refinery licenses. And one of the policies of government will obviously be to give some deadlines within which, if nothing happens, we'll have to cancel those licenses and give them out to individuals who are willing to make the investments that are essential to bring refining. Let me, however, say that as attractive as building many refineries are, a time will come when really the surplusage in the investment in refinery will be such that you will find that you are overbuilding. Because if you're building with a mind to have a crude supply, you've got to look at what is the total volume of our crude availability for these refineries. And therefore, I think that if we met our 750 and Dangote, who is far gone now, meets his 650, and we create some opportunities for some modular, smaller refineries in some of these Niger Delta areas, where we do need to recognize some of the very mediocre technologies, see how we can bring them to some level of organization where they can put some investment in those refineries. I think we would have met some of the needs that we have and also be able to meet much more exportation. Of course, most refineries in the world do not necessarily have crude supplies. They import their crude wherever they can find it. And as a line of business, that's something we'll begin to look at futuristically. I've been asked whether we plan to privatize the refineries at some point in time. My understanding with my principal has been that the first thing is to first get those refineries in a level where they're not going to be sold as scraps. And that is actually why we've invited investment on a loan basis to get them built up to a point where they're at least something you can then put out in the market in a way that is otherwise we'll be selling scraps really. And that's what we're doing. I think at some point in time that decision will be made. It won't be made by me alone, but it's made by the Federal Executive Council. I've been told that somehow I operate unconstitutionally because of the convergence of the two portfolios. And I've always answered this very clearly that there's no unconstitutionality about it. And if my readings of the Constitution as the law of 30 years is right, there's nothing wrong with that. Having said that, in terms of the practical efficacy of combining those portfolios, the only individual who will decide why he did what he did and when he thinks what he did needs to be brought to an end is my appointed the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So I will not spend too much time on procrastinating on that. I'm sure he will do what he needs to do at the time that he wants to do that. What are we doing in terms of dealing with upstream, especially with all the pipeline problems and sabotages that we're seeing? It calls to mind again whether holistically we have dealt with the problems of the Niger Delta. There's always a seeming attraction, to utilize force to solve these problems. But experience has taught us that that never really works. So we're going to be obviously ensuring that the security agencies, I'm sure they're doing the best that they can to police a lot better, get enough equipment, and we're working with them on those. But more importantly, we're going to try to begin very robust engagements to find out what has broken in the contract of relationship that used to exist between the Niger Delta and the Nigerian populace, and why suddenly a resort to sabotage is taking the order of the day. Those engagements are going out very quietly now, and very soon, hopefully, we'll begin to find some solutions. I think we also need to look at the amnesty program and find out to what extent we've kept faith with what was the initial intent of the amnesty program, because that is one of the areas of border in those communities. But for whatever the reasons are, engagement is key, policing is key, and throwing economic palliatives to those sectors are also key. To the extent we begin to invest, to the extent we're looking at mobile filling stations, we're looking at trying to get them involved in securities of the pipelines, we're trying all sorts. We're trying to create funding mechanisms that will enable them look at investment in some of the modular refineries that they want to operate today. And we're giving a license even in those areas. I think a whole lot of mixture of economics, security, dialogue, and engagement ultimately will get us where we should be. Our budget is based on 2.2 million barrels a day. It is absolutely critical for this government that we get back to those numbers as fast as we can, and a lot of energy is going on around this. I don't know if there's anything that I'm missing.
Just to remind you, Honorable Member, Honorable Minister, sorry, I'm used to member. The leader raised a very important issue that you attempted to address, but you didn't speak to it. The urgency of now, he said that he would have loved that you changed the appellation to urgency of yesterday, but you haven't really spoken to that.
I actually started, Your Excellency, Speaker, I actually started with that. I told him I liked his phraseology better, but whether it's an urgency of yesterday or an urgency of now, it connotes a sense of huge, abundant urgency. And I've again re-emphasized why that urgency came straight into our doorsteps. Lack of foreign exchange earnings, depleting volumes in terms of crude volumes, and the non-participation of private marketers in this, the breakdown of law. Yes. And if we do not do what we're doing now, I've said in my materials that the queues will be back in very full force. There will be complete social disruption. FAC obligations will not be met. Governors will not pay salaries. Federal government, in fact, will not pay salaries, not just, and probably members of this Honorable House will not be able to very easily push on receiving the emoluments that they're entitled to in very quick order. That's the reality. that's the urgency of now. The urgency knocks on our door on every day and every minute that we stand here. So, you know, and then of course, in addition, we also mentioned that the upstream sector, which we have not funded sufficiently, will completely collapse. And so we need to get back to a point where we reserve whatever monies we have to address the problems. And I look at the honorable member who mentioned whether there was an apology that was owed or not, and because I'm not a politician, I'm not able to put together the nuances that requires an apology. But what I do know is that the former president never declared himself to be a pastor. So foreseeing tomorrow is only the prerogative of pastors. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. You may now take your leave. I think time is far gone. Honorable members, we have heard from the minister, but I guess it's not enough for us to take a decision based on what we have heard from the minister. Now we know that
between the House of Representatives and the Minister of State for Petroleum, Igedde Yam, where he had made a 15-minute presentation on the deregulation of the oil sector. The minister said that definitely that the decision to remove fuel subsidy at this point in time is very, very inevitable, that there is no option for the federal government to do that, as independent marketers, due to the unavailability of forex, could not even supply up to 0.5% of their allocation, and which imposes a total huge supply on NNPC, which was not designed to carry up such duties. And he says that, as a matter of fact, if the subsidy was not removed, there will be a lot of social dislocation, more jobs will be lost, as already about 400,000 jobs has already been lost. And he said that the subsidy removal will increase private participation and then create more 200,000 jobs. Well, Representative Dalami Kurfi is the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Petroleum Downstream. Well, before the minister came in, when he was the speaker directed that he should be ushered in, there was a lot of uproar in the House. What could have been the reason for that?
Actually, you know, when the minister is almost coming to the House, there's some shouting from especially from the opposition party, because they are complaining, saying that the government didn't include them when they are discussing the issue about the subsidy. So, but at the end, by the contribution of our good leader, Yakubu Dogara, he resolved the issue and they allowed the minister to come in and explain to us, which all our members understand and accept what the federal government are proposing now, or they already proposal for the subsidy, for removal of the subsidy now. So our member is accepted now. They should go ahead and do what is better to the Nigerians now.
All right, so after this presentation, what next for the members' resolution?
No, we already finished, because the minister already told us the reason why the federal government must do that, remove that subsidy, because so many people will lose their job, and if the subsidy removed, many people are getting the job from the Nigerians. So that's why our members accept what the minister explained to us, and now all our members is accepted for that removal of the subsidy now.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Oh, well, at this point in time, we will now hand over to our studios for the continuation of the scheduled programs for the day. I am Ignatius Nkwo. Bye for now.